Welcome to the Bale Grist Mill. I'm Steve Harle, the lead miller here at the mill, and I'm down by Mill Creek because today we're going to be talking about the nature, the flora and fauna around the mill, both today and a little bit about how it was historically.
Sound is very important when working an old machine like the Bale Grist Mill. It's how the mill tells you whether it's working properly, and the sound of the machinery running well is a very special type of music to me. But it's another sound that greets me every time I arrive at the Bale Grist Mill, one that for a water mill is just as important as the rhythm of happy machinery. Mill Creek is fed by a natural spring, so unlike many creeks in the Napa Valley, it doesn't run dry in the summer. So all year round, visitors and millers alike are greeted by the trickling of the creek as they walk down the path to the mill. This year-round supply of water is incredibly beneficial to the local wildlife. Many plant and animal species thrive here because of it. The environment around the mill can be described as oak woodland, comprising of oak species such as coastal live oaks, valley oaks, and other species such as California bay laurel, and this one, endemic to the area, the hollyleaf cherry. I've only lived in the area for 4 years and have focused mainly on learning about the history of the Bale Grist Mill and other mills like it in the area. So when it comes to talking about the flora around the mill, I can tell you things that are pretty obvious, like the poison oak around the mill has some of the biggest leaves you've ever seen. Look at them, they're almost as big as my hand. Or history related, like the oak woodlands in the upper Napa Valley being the inspiration for the landscape on Treasure Island in Robert Louis Stevenson's novel of the same name. Or that the invasive English ivy that grows around the mill is actually preserved for historical reasons. It was a favourite of the original Mrs. Lyman from the property next door, and once engulfed the entire mill. Or that the original environment around the mill was probably not oak woodland at all. So I asked my friend Jay, assistant park steward and one of the naturalists over at the Bothay State Park, to come to the mill and show us some of the interesting plant life. So I'm here with my friend and colleague Jay from the Bothay Napa Valley State Park, and he's going to be telling me a little bit more about the flora that we have here around the mill.
Yeah, so I always really love coming over to the mill. It's wonderful to walk around. The Mill Creek itself creates this really wonderful atmosphere, and there's the riparian zone there at the creek, and that intersects with the oak woodland, so it's a really interesting ecotone and a lot of interesting plants around here.
So we're going to take a walk up from the mill, up the history trail, and we're going to see what interesting things we can see.
Sounds good.
Great. As we walked, Jay explained to me that a riparian corridor is a biological term for the interface between land and streams and rivers. As well as the aquatic ecology, riparian corridors also support species of plants that only thrive when there's water available, which makes these habitats highly biodiverse. So this is one I do know. This is a black walnut, right?
Yeah, correct. It's kind of interesting. It took me a little longer to learn this one for some reason. There's something about the leaves that didn't seem to fit the landscape. So this is another tree you're not going to see in the oak woodlands. This is a big leaf maple, so this grows really close to the mill along the riparian corridor. Big leaf maple is interesting, of course, because of its big leaves, which can be as large as dinner plates. I also love this tree for its summer and its fall color. I think of this maple as kind of bridging the summer and fall seasons. So up here is a spice bush. You'll see growing in the riparian corridor here at the mill and over at Bothay Park. It blooms in May and into June, and you'll see this blooming along with California buckeye this time of year. So these are the spent flowers of the spice bush. I always like to come up to them and actually see, often you'll see insect life, something living within it. Looks like it's a little hard to see, but it looks like maybe you can see a cricket in there.
Jay was taking me to see some native California grasses. He described how the annual grasses we were passing through, already turning the color that earned California the nickname the Golden State, were largely introduced species. But we would encounter a few more native flowers before we got there. What about this one, Jay? This looks a bit interesting.
Yeah, so this is the California buckeye. As you can see, it's really beautifully blooming right now.
It looks like it's really popular with the pollinators.
Yeah, it's fantastic to just stand underneath. Right now, we're seeing moths, butterflies, bees. And I've also read that it's toxic to honeybees. Steve, this is another good one. So this is one of my favorites. This is the sticky monkey flower, and throughout Northern California, it's got this uniform orange color You'll see some white streaks too that kind of help aid pollinators. And if you check out our garden series, I actually love growing this in my garden. I grow this common variety as well as a lot of different ones that a lot of different colors are represented in Southern California and the Central Coast. It's great to see these fairy lanterns still blooming. There's just enough shade here and it's been cool enough. These are really wonderful, delicate flowers. And Jason, our park manager, talks about these in his garden video.
Finally, as the trail turned along a sheltered northerly facing hillside, we found our destination.
So now we're a little further away from the mill and we're in oak woodland. Often these oak woodlands comprise of blue oaks or Oregon oaks. We believe these are Oregon oaks. And underneath them you'll see these bunch grasses. In this case they're California fescue, and you can see their seed heads here. So interspersed often among these fescue are native irises. Here we're also seeing, of course, a lot of poison oak. Really like to let people know about bunch grasses because this was the dominant grassland and oak savanna. So this is called sedge, and you see this more in the riparian zone, or you might also see it where there's a seep or a spring. And you can tell the difference between this and something like California fescue or other bunch grasses because it's got much deeper green blades.
By the mid-1840s, when the mill was constructed, these introduced grasses would already have begun to establish themselves in the upper Napa Valley.
Jay's revelations on the California native grasses were fascinating. It's hard to imagine that before European settlement, there weren't the golden hillsides that we're so used to seeing in California summers. Thank you for joining me on this virtual tour of the natural environment around the Bale Grist Mill. If you haven't already done so, check out our video on the history of the mill, and in the next few weeks we're going to be making videos on the operation of the mill, including a milling demonstration. We're going to be looking at the machinery in the mill, and also we're going to be making a video on the waterways and mill ponds and looking at some of the other technologies that they used to power the mill back in the 19th century. So check out those videos in the future and let us know if you've got any questions about any of the videos that you've seen so far.